Shop the Sherwin-Williams Memorial Day sale and get 30% off paints and stains May 15th through the 28th. Whether you're refreshing your interior or exterior, we've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online to have it delivered or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
Howard, I'm so glad I saved your number. My husband fell at a construction site and is in critical condition. I knew it wasn't safe.
I'm very sorry to hear that. I just want to let you know I'm here to help. Yeah, tell me more about it. Work injuries not only affect the victim, but also everyone around them. Inc. Law is Chicago-based and here to advocate on your behalf. With over 100 attorneys and staff, if you or someone you know has questions about a work injury, call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal. That's Inc. Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Robin. Welcome to a new episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Wednesday night, June 3rd, 2026, as we record this new show. After a 6-1 homestand, the White Sox followed those high vibes with another road series loss. Kind of the same taste in the mouth after the White Sox won that dramatic series against the Cubs earlier, and then they went to Seattle and got beat up a little bit. Minnesota Twins won their first two games by beating up David Sandlin and Davis Martin. We'll recap those starts, but the White Sox did win on Wednesday by a final score of 8-0. Sam Antonacci and Andrew Benintendi powered that victory, and we'll talk about their games at the plate. Also, we'll preview the upcoming Philadelphia Phillies series that really starts this 12-game gauntlet we've been keeping an eye on. The White Sox toughest test of the season could be these next 2 weeks. White Sox General Manager Chris Getz spoke with our James Fegan and other members of the media in Minneapolis to provide his thoughts on how his team has been playing after the month of May.
Yeah, it was a quality month. I think I'll start with, just the last week, the homestand. With Minnesota and Detroit, it was two great series. We've been able to stack a handful of those throughout the month of May. And, testament to, the players stepping up and they enjoy playing with each other. They play to win. Clearly, even the games that were maybe even out of it or certainly down, they just don't give in. So to see them respond the way that they have is great, and to get the support from our fans like we have is really cool to see. They're really embracing, the energy that they bring and just the joy that they have in a winning style of baseball.
Losing Munetaka Murakami for the next month is a big blow, but Getz sees it as an opportunity for Jacob Gonzalez to show that his power numbers in AAA are real.
Well, it's an opportunity for Jacob Gonzalez, who's been doing very well at AAA, having 19 home runs in 2 months is significant. His first game yesterday was a positive, good at bats. We're not expecting him to be Mune by any sense, but he's going to be helpful. These guys, they believe that they can win any night, and that's pretty much throughout the roster. I think it's become something that's believed throughout the organization too. So, injuries are part of this game. You look around, our division or just the league. There's some teams that have been hit harder than us. And this is just part of navigating a major league season. You've got to overcome some adversity, and we're faced with it a little bit right now. But that doesn't mean that, we're not going to continue and go out there and play good baseball, because we're capable of doing that. And, once again, an opportunity for Jacob and others to step up.
Miguel Vargas continues to stay hot at the plate. He now has 15 home runs and 41 RBIs for the season with an .870 OPS. Against the Twins, Vargas drove in 7 RBIs in 3 games. Getz shares how the front office knew Vargas would get better in 2026, but ultimately very impressed with the level that Vargas has reached this season.
We were confident that he was going to take another step forward from last year, and he's done that. There were glimpses of it last year. That month, 6-week period that he was one of the top hitters in baseball, so we knew it was in there. He just continued to gain confidence and took it into this year. And, not only offensively, he first of all, he puts together such a good at-bat, and, there's been a lot of damage in there, but defensively he continues to improve and work. And, he loves to play. His instincts for the game are so strong. And, obviously there were qualities and ingredients that we felt were in there when we acquired him. And then you put on top of that just the acumen and the work ethic, and it's really aligned for him, and he's been a great player for us this year.
The White Sox have seen a lot of new faces this season, and it looks like minor league development continues to get better for the organization. Getz gives a lot of credit to their minor league managers.
Chad Pinder, Paul Janisch, Pat Leland, Guillermo Quiroz, Jason Nix. We feel really good about our minor league managers, and I know that obviously there's hitting coaches and pitching coaches and rovers and field coordinator, and they're all a big part of the development of the player. But I really want to highlight our managers, because I think those guys have done a really outstanding job. And I know I talked to Paul on the way here, and who had just talked to Chad about some of the players on that roster, where they're at with their development, and we just trust the group that we have, and rightly so, because guys have continued to get better and performed at the major league level, and it doesn't always translate right away at the major league level. So I credit them, because a lot of these guys have done well right out of the gate. We don't expect that to happen all the time, but we're in a really good spot with guys transitioning. So we feel like our development system and process it might be the best that it's been in a while.
If you visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SoxMachine, I cut together Getz' thoughts about the upcoming 2026 MLB Draft in a new video. One comment that I thought was interesting from Getz about the upcoming draft was him being asked if the current state of the team impacts decision-making on who they select. Does proximity to the majors matter to Getz?
No, it doesn't factor in. It doesn't. We're looking to find the best players that we can, and they come in different shapes and sizes and timelines. And it's really about adding talent to this organization and, finding value, really. And that value can be used in a lot of different ways. Obviously, when they get to the big leagues and produce, but also, on a trade market, this prospect capital is real. So, we're looking for players that we feel like are going to boost our system. And, I think some of the traps could be focused, you're looking at your major league club and you're trying to fill a need. And that is a trap that we want to avoid. And so, we've done a great job, bringing in up the middle talent, whether it be shortstop, second base. We've got players that, we've got Jacob Gonzalez up here playing first base. We've got Sam Antonacci playing left field. So, fundamentally, that's something that we have prioritized, and we'll continue to do that. I look at the San Diego Padres, and, you look at pretty much across their diamond in the outfield, and you've got prior shortstops. And so, it can provide a lot of flexibility. Oftentimes, your major league club can be really athletic, both run, defend, and obviously hit as well with that up the middle talent. So now that doesn't mean that if there's an outfielder or a pitcher or catcher that you don't take that talent, but in this case we're focused on getting the best player that we can.
Even though the White Sox lost a series in Minneapolis, they are 33-29, and they have a 2.5 game cushion in the American League wild card. But with this being an unexpected year of contention, just how aggressive will Chris Getz be adding to this roster during the season?
We're always looking for opportunities to improve our roster. We've handled it that way since, the beginning. And, a deal might come together, later today or near the deadline. you look at the talent that we've brought up this year, and we still have talent out in the minor league system as well at AAA and AA. There's going to be opportunities to bring up those guys and get what we feel like is a real boost, because these other guys have boosted this as well. So, we'll continue to monitor the trade market. This team's playing good baseball, and we're staying in it, and these guys believe in themselves. We believe in them. And so any way that we can continue to fuel this team somehow, some way, we're going to look to do that.
Our James Fegan followed up on Getz's comments about looking to make additions to the team.
I've said a lot that it's not all about 2026, but obviously chances to contend are precious. Is there anything? I feel like we could ask you 10 different ways. Has this changed because you guys are good right now? But is there any kind of the process or thinking, or even promotions where you have to think more in terms of can this guy make us better right now rather than giving him runway? Are there processes that kind of get adjusted a little bit given the results and where you are in the standings?
Yeah, we are focused on 2026, and I know I have stated that it's not about 2026, but this team is playing really good baseball, and we know where we are in the standings, both within the division and wild card, and we're monitoring it. And if there's opportunities to add to this, we have higher hopes than just 2026, because we want to have a continual winner here. But if there's chances to really add to this group, we're going to do that.
Now joining me on the podcast is Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And hello, gentlemen. James, you were up in Minnesota this week covering the series for us as the White Sox lose that series. They lose 2 out of 3. It's not a great result, but at least they bounce back in a big way on Wednesday afternoon. But I want to start with the pitching that we saw in the first 2 games, James, and specifically David Sandlin, as he went 4 innings. He allowed 8 hits, 8 earned runs, walked 4, and struck out 4. Not a great second start in his major league career, but I imagine that he's going to get a third opportunity, right? The White Sox are not changing as far as his responsibilities.
He is the listed probable starter for Sunday. Noah Schultz is obviously not with a specific timeline for return right now. There's really not other options. And obviously he was good his first time out. Stuff's pretty loud. He certainly pitched pretty well in his last couple starts at AAA. This was someone they wanted to challenge and see if he could start this year. It's kind of your most eligible bachelor in terms of that front for filling this need at the moment. Yeah, I think it's one bad start. It's obviously challenging for him to face, in his second career start, the same team twice in a row. And really he got not that he was a click away from being good the other night, but certainly there are elements of he got hit hard second time through the order as they eliminated more of his pitches and just kind of sat on his curveball, as he noted himself. So I don't think it was a expose this guy secretly is terrible sort of outing. I think it was more this is not going to be all smooth sailing. There's going to be challenges out of the stretch, and he's, as much as he has a wide arsenal of pitches, if he's not having more than one secondary working, he can fall into ruts a little bit that he has to be conscious of. So
okay.
Yeah, I don't see what else they would do, and I also don't think it's necessarily man, he was exposed as a fraud and now they have to do something. I think he's still someone that they see upside with, and I think is most deserving of the opportunity of what they have available.
And listening to Venable post game, the reason why he sent him out in that 5th inning was to attempt to save the bullpen. Was that the thought process?
Yeah, that's also basically how he talked about Davis Martin going out there for the 5th inning, and how Davis talked about it as well. So there were a lot of signs in Minnesota of this is, and I know people don't like to hear it, but they're clearly just kind of worn down at the end of this 13 consecutive day stretch. They had a lot of high effort, high emotional games before that, and that homestand, and you saw a lot of guys just kind of dragging through this one. And I think it obviously showed up in their quality of play on Tuesday, but they were able to, at least go out on a high note and avoid the sweep. So I think the day off will do a lot of people good. not just Colson or not just Sandlin. I think this is a team that needed a breather.
Well, the White Sox on that day off will be making their way from Minneapolis to Philadelphia. We'll be previewing that series in a moment. Jim, Davis Martin start. Looking back at that game, if the defense wasn't as sloppy as they were in that fifth inning, I think Martin would have been fine. Was there something in his performance that you saw that could maybe raise a red flag?
It wasn't as sharp as previous outings. Like the hits that he gave up tend to be over the middle of the plate. A lot of non-competitive misses, easy takes. Some of the walks were, 4 or 5 pitches. That is uncharacteristic of him. So there were signs that it wasn't his night or he wasn't at his best. But yeah, I mean, the way the first run scored with my draw, letting a hard grounder, but within his range, skip under his glove. And then, he had the balk himself, taking the double play out of the picture. Some things I think the defense accelerated to where maybe he would be able to get through 5 and maybe not get to a quality start, but throw a useful one that doesn't result in him getting tattooed, just more of a 4 runs over 5 innings, 3 runs over 5 innings, something like that. The ERA goes up. Perhaps he's not talking that great about it afterwards, but just doesn't cave in the way that I think everything kind of spiraled and fed off each other in the worst way. Like even, Martin cut off a throw going home, but he should have been backing up the plate. So he was kind of, I think, a little bit punch drunk too as well, like over the course of the middle innings of that game. So yeah, I think if there's any concern, if you're trying to like extrapolate this beyond one outing is, given that he hasn't had the biggest margin for error with stuff over the course of his career, his stuff has ticked up. But if he's been pitching feeling pretty well or close to 100% this whole season until the last time out, and then as you get into the middle months of the season and wear and tear starts to accumulate and, the freshest arm isn't there, does he look more ordinary, middle of the rotation, kind of the out-getter, but also like not a all-star that people more or less thought he was before the season? I would still say that he's better than he's ever been. So I wouldn't draw conclusions off this one outing. But if you're looking for a way that this signals something, that would maybe be the one thing to watch out for, aside from, it's hard to record 4 or 5 outs in the inning. It's hard to continually give up 90 feet and expect to pay for it. So yeah, I think those two things probably fed into each other too much to try to isolate them.
Yeah, I thought Venable made good points in the post game, acknowledging the defensive mistakes and that they would address it. And I think one of those areas to address, like Sam Antonacci makes some great athletic diving catches in left field. I think you pointed out in the last homestand, James, he had to replace his divot on one of those diving attempts where it wasn't as graceful, but he's made some impressive athletic catches in left field, Jim. But I think the next step in his development as an outfielder is the understanding the throwing situations, because I think it was at least 2 batters for the Minnesota Twins were they able to gain an extra 90 feet off of throws from Sam Antonacci.
Yeah, I mean, that could be experience. It could also be part of how he's wired as a base runner, is trying to get the lead runner when the lead runner isn't there, and speed of the game type thing. So yeah, it's probably a little bit of a 2-front war for him in that regard, but given that he's running better routes than I thought he would be initially, and yeah, even the diving catch he made, the dive was a lot smoother. He got his body more horizontal to the grass before landing, as opposed to the other ones where it seems like he's going shoulder or collarbone first, and like the legs are scorpioning behind him, where like Tanner Murray crunches and Antonacci doesn't. It's just like, is it just a matter of time? But yeah, I guess Antonacci's literally built different. But that dive was a lot more outfielder like, for like, how do they do this all the time and not get hurt? And yeah, defraying the impact to multiple parts of the torso, I think, is a way to go.
Now, offensively, what I liked about this series is that the White Sox still scored 18 runs in 3 games. Yes, they lost the first 2 games, but they scored 6 runs in the first game, and they scored 4 in the second game. It's not like we're watching 1-2 run outputs in these losses for the White Sox. And then, of course, the big one in their 8-0 win on Wednesday. But speaking of Sam Antonacci, James, when the White Sox are facing a right-handed pitcher, as Antonacci had a perfect day, he went 4 for 4 against the Twins on Wednesday with the walk. Have the White Sox found their leadoff guy with Sam Antonacci leading the way when there is a righty on the mound?
Yeah, I mean, Venables said that openly, and I think his OBP kind of supports that. You can't really get Antonacci himself to like say I like being a leadoff hitter. He just says like, well, I'm trying to get on base no matter what the situation is. But I think it's pretty well established. It's really right now, even without Murakami, they've almost just kind of slid Benintendi in his place a little bit. But like they're top 5 against right-handers, especially when Murakami's back. They've figured that out to a degree, and you can even put Tristan Peters as like kind of floating around, someone who's at least every day against right-handers. That half the lineup, that one they're not losing a lot of sleep over figuring out. I think it's what they do against lefties. That's obviously been kind of compromised by Austin Hayes and Everson Pereira being out. That you were supposed to have more kind of proven guys with real 20 home run plus pop to really threaten in there, rather than Edgar Caro batting cleanup. Like even good functioning Edgar Caro is probably more of like a OBP fronted guy in that aspect. So right-handed, yeah, there's a lot of answers for the questions at hand. It's the other side that and I think Antonacci even would probably agree that he struggled against lefties in a way that only makes that picture a little murkier on the other side.
Yeah, because Antonacci this year against right-handed pitchers, podcast listeners, is batting .336 with a .423 on base percentage. I mean, yeah, that would definitely make you an ideal leadoff hitter. It's an .882 OPS against righties. But against left-handed pitchers, Antonacci has yet to get an extra base hit. He's batting .103 with a .212 on base percentage against lefties. And I wonder, Jim, if those numbers continue, because right now, just because of depth reasons, you want Antonacci in that lineup. And I think it's something like 75% of the games the White Sox are going to play this year are going to be against right-handed pitchers. So we're talking about the smaller slice of the pie for the games this year of what you do with the other 25% games remaining, if that number holds true as far as facing left-handed pitchers. And James mentioned right now there's just not really the outfield depth to sub out Antonacci at this point, right? Like, we're just going to have to watch Antonacci grow, and that might be him continue to struggle against lefties.
Yeah, I mean, it's a worthwhile way to struggle if the White Sox are going to concede that. I mean, I think you're seeing he had these splits coming up through the minors, but I think he was able to mitigate them just because lefties aren't that good. He got hit by a lot of left-handed pitches. He learned how to stand in more and keep that shoulder closed against lefties and get on base that way. And he's still, getting plunked, like 3 times in 34 plate appearances. So that's not far off his rate in AAA. But he found ways to make himself useful in the minors, but it was still a weakness. And righties were more or less his, the way he padded his stats, and that's more or less playing out here. So I think there's probably going to be a platoon element to his game. Yeah, maybe forever, like in terms of just he hasn't shown it yet, and just the way I think he's gonna access power is probably going to be pitches coming to him. Like, he doesn't seem like somebody who's going to extend his arms and drive the ball the other way. So it's more or less surviving against lefties and pounding righties. And he's got, one part of the equation figured out. It would just be nice, I think, for the White Sox to have readier right-handed outfielders to sub in for him. Like Derek Hill has been, I think, game this year, but he just got hurt, and he had that weird push bunt that made me think like something was still off, like 2 outs, runners in the corners. Why are you push bunting? Didn't work. Really odd. But yeah, I think Grichuk's been a nice find to buy time. But yeah, having at least one of those guys back, particularly Hayes, just because Pereira is an unknown. And I think whatever the White Sox got from him would basically be a bonus given the situation. But yeah, if there is no solution for having a platoon partner for Antonacci, or if there are other players that need to be subbed out earlier, then you kind of got to go with it a little bit. And maybe it's a matter of just drills, traject, something like that, just to try to improve him in season to where he's at least not striking out 33% of the time, which is even high for him. And just putting more balls in play would be probably the first step forward.
And James, with Austin Hayes, they just have shut him down now, right?
Pretty much. Like, he supposed to have gone through a bunch of testing on Monday, and they hadn't said word back from that. But Will said that no matter what it is, it's going to be a period of inactivity a little bit before they ramp him up again. So, not a specific, like, he'll be out this long, but certainly not like, oh, this is looking great and trending towards a recovery, since this is the second time he got shut down during the rehab process. So it's either figuring out something more is wrong, or basically doing this over again and probably being more cautious with it in terms of shutting it down. So Everson Pereira, it seems like he's got a chance to beat Hayes back at this point in a way that's, and he's not winning the contest, in a way that's exciting about how quick he's coming back either. So yeah, it's uncertain. And certainly losing Derek Hill, like, was, in all wrapped up post game, and, walked past us as we were going to the post game to, get evaluated in the target field. And Venable said that'd probably include an x-ray. So just before you even ask, Junior Perez is the only non in the majors already or on the IL outfielder on the 40-man roster. And I don't know. I feel like I could see him at some point. Certainly with the way things are trending.
Brady Montgomery bats right-handed.
That's true. That's a great point. I think many other people will probably notice that as well. I feel like Brady Montgomery's kind of on that realm of prospect where they don't want to promote him until, like, they feel like he's ready on his own merits, rather than bring him up to fill an emergency need, and certainly, like, short side of the platoon type of need necessarily.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, maybe the White Sox are going to be going to the clearance aisle, back to the waiver wire, see if they can strike again and find a right-handed bat who plays outfield that can help platoon in some situations. Obviously not a starter, because you want Sam Antonacci to have those starts. With Antonacci and Tristan Peters in left and in center field, you have a pretty athletic outfield, including even Nishida as well. When Nishida's in right field, you have a pretty athletic outfield right now for the White Sox. It's just, if they're looking for opportunities to improve, that would be the one area, is can someone spell a game for Antonacci when there is a tough lefty that'll be starting. We also got a longer look at Jacob Gonzalez this week, Jim. Again, he made his MLB debut on Sunday against Detroit, but he started each of these games against the Twins. He went 3 for 11. He picked up 2 RBIs, and he walked twice. He also struck out 6 times. What are your first impressions of Jacob Gonzalez after watching him for 4 games?
Within the realm of Jacob Gonzalez's first few games in the majors, I think, overall, especially at first base, you're seeing, like, in that 3-6 double play, you saw the athleticism that you don't see from many first basemen to scramble to the fence and make a throw to second base, like you wouldn't see Murakami doing that. You also saw him, like, play a bunt too aggressively and not get back to the bag because of, like, his willingness to roam, or being used to moving around the infield, not being anchored to a bag, and that coming back to bite him. So, like, at first base, I think you saw both sides of the coin. At the plate, I think you saw some at bats where made good contact, using more of the field. Bradley working him away and shooting the ball that way was a nice moment for him. Also struck out 6 times in a row, like Joe Ryan ate his lunch. I think that's probably a case. You look at the pitch map and just a lot of well-executed pitches, like nothing in the middle of the zone. A welcome to the majors moment in terms of, like, nothing's in the middle of the plate. If you're waiting for that middle of the plate mistake, they come fewer and further between. And, not that he, lives off the middle, but just in terms of when you see what he's doing in Charlotte and seeing the pitches that he's hitting, definitely more opportunities to launch the ball in the air to the pole field versus, how he's getting pitched early on. And looks like, after that big spate of strikeouts and, getting his bell rung a little bit, seemed like he was doing a better job of managing zones and figuring out maybe how they're attacking him, or just giving up the ability to pull the ball unless he got the off-speed pitch. So like his first couple at bats, I think, and he even lined out to first on a softer line drive, but seemed like by the finale, he was at least kind of had a better idea of how to handle the outside or the edges of the plate and not getting too horizontal with the strike zone. But yeah, otherwise, like, had some good contact, had some moments, also had some moments that he would like to forget. And that more or less is, I think, how life's going to be for him, as somebody with some patience and somebody, I think that's where, when you're watching somebody with plate discipline come to the majors and realize that, the pitches on the edges that you normally take for balls in Charlotte are now strikes here because the execution's better. And so the counts aren't as favorable, and something for him to work on. I think you're seeing the same thing with like Riku Nishida as well, of somebody who gets into bad counts and then expands more than you're used to seeing, because the 0-1, 0-2, 1-2 counts probably come more frequently to somebody with their batting eye, and maybe with like the, especially in Nishida's case, of just no reason to fear him because he's not going to take you deep. So like a lot more reason to be aggressive in the zone. So yeah, I think overall it was neutral. Like, I would say reasons for encouragement, reasons to see why it might not work in his first go around, but did enough to keep the experiment going.
James, has Jacob spoken to about his comfortability with first base? Like, is he enjoying playing this position? Does he care?
I think he likes playing baseball in the major leagues. So on that,
okay,
in that vein, he's about as jacked up as you can be about playing first base. He was pretty self-effacing post game today. Was like, we didn't talk to him, when the actual error happened, but like, he was kind of making fun of himself a little bit, both for the 6 strikeouts. And like, he said the 6 strikeouts, like, that, I don't think I've ever done that before. I was pretty sure it wasn't going to be 7. I think I'm a better player than that. And I thought I'd just keep doing what I was doing. It wouldn't keep happening. And with first base, he's like, well, I came in for the bunt and then like just didn't think enough about like getting aggressively back in time. And well, I'm never going to do that again. So it's clear it's a little new to him. Still, even though he got obviously some experience in spring and in Charlotte, but I think he's still in the realm where we'll see him like, oh, he hasn't played really that much. And especially like on a bunt play where he's so much more used to being the second baseman in that situation, and kind of played it as such, and didn't have that same like, my priority is getting back to the bag 9 times out of 10 instincts as a more regular first baseman would have. And, he also pulled a 3.636, which the official score was very adamant telling us was not technically a double play because it had like there's basically 2 separate plays in one. So yeah, I think he's pretty on board with like, this is what got me to the majors. And he puts himself kind of in the same realm as like Antonacci a little bit, being asked about left field. It's like, well, I've always just played all over and I always will. And like, I would never turn down any assignment. So I think in terms of his ethos of what he thinks himself as a player, accepting this is part of it. And I can't say enough, the regular major league at bats thing is kind of that's really going to carry him over any kind of lingering discomfort he might have about the assignment.
Continuing on the offensive conversation, Colson Montgomery almost had a record-setting day. 14 men left on base on Wednesday. He went 0 for 6 with 4 strikeouts, 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. So not the best day for Colson Montgomery, but it's okay. The White Sox still won 8-0. And part of that, this series, is that we're starting to see Andrew Benintendi, James, show signs of life at the plate. He had 2 home runs in this series. His season OPS is now over 700. In his last 15 games, Benintendi's actually batting .296 with a .367 on base percentage and slugging .593. I mean, that is an all-star slash line with 4 homers and 12 RBIs. And I know he can't play in the field all that much. And we talked about in our previous episode the loss of Munetaka Murakami while he's dealing with his hamstring injury. Who's going to pick up the slack? Miguel Vargas is staying hot. We know Colson Montgomery can hit the ball out of the yard. is this a time for a veteran like Andrew Benintendi to show his worth again here, James, to remind people that, hey, I'm still here and I can still help?
I mean, I don't think that baseball events happen for narrative reasons quite like the way you're spelling out. But his hard hit rates, his, contact, the angles, or like the sweet spot, all like his Savant page has been read in terms of like contact quality all season. He's been swinging and missing a lot more, and that's like concerning. He had another like game where he didn't look very good left on left against breaking balls right before it. But basically, from what's been going on under the hood with him, and feeling like he had more bat speed this year, a little, nothing crazy, more of a tweak and approach than anything. If anything, like the results are a little slow in coming due. Like he shouldn't be on 6 home runs based on like the way he's been making contact over the course of the season. So yes, it'd be nice, convenient. Certainly now is the time where they need it as much as ever, and he's going to be seemingly batting third more often, or just kind of like creeping into the slot in their top 5 that was vacated by Murakami in some fashion against right-handed pitching. So it's definitely a good time to have it, but he's been someone that's been like, man, he should be doing more based on like every indicator we have of, how well he's swinging, or at least how he's striking the ball. Is he going to become like this older version of himself where he like has a 25 plus strikeout rate the whole time and hits for power? Maybe. I think just any kind of production that seems consistent would be welcome for him and welcome for the team at large and to the fan base. But this seems like it should have been coming for a while.
Well, hopefully it does stick around, because that could be a big boost, Jim. Because Montgomery, he's been really good the past week. He has games like this, but when Munetaka Murakami is healthy, all right, you got 3 studs in the middle of your order. When you're down to 2 and one has an off game, it's like that's a little bit of a concern. So this is that's what I was trying to get to, is like, is this an opportunity for Benintendi, the veteran, to step up and help? I know he obviously wants to hit all the time, James, but there is a pressing need for someone to help out on the power game with Vargas.
I just like, if all the people in the clubhouse would be like, yeah, it was time for me to step up, I would be like, the Benintendi would be like the most surprising person to give that sort of answer. I think if we yanked him on the podcast right now, I'm sure he'd be like, oh, I'm always trying to hit, like just working through some stuff. Like,
yeah, okay.
He's like, if I were doing my job, we wouldn't be talking about
not
this.
Even like from all baseball is like process oriented and stop putting emotions in it. This is like the most person on that end in terms of like how they talk about their swing. So like, you could probably get Miguel Vargas riled up. I don't know what you would do to rile up Benintendi, and frankly, I wouldn't try, because it would weird me out after covering him now in the 4th season. This grumbly, calm guy, he feels normal and safe to me. Don't make him weird.
You'd be asking, are you okay? Like after your 5th question, are you okay? Do you need to talk?
No, that's what he probably say.
Yeah. No, Benintendi, like I think with Montgomery, he was 0 for 12 with 7 strikeouts this series. He can go as cold as he does go hot, and having Murakami out does expose him a little bit more, or because Murakami has the same tendency sometimes to where the strikeouts pile up on him. So I think when they're both in lineup, there's possibility that one of them's good enough to cover for the other, or both of them are off, and then you can kind of call it a joint struggle, or just part of the characteristics of this team that can be hot and cold, versus when it's just Montgomery out there having these severe cold spells to where it becomes all about him. So having somebody with the same handedness, I shouldn't say same power, but like having enough power to hit 4th or 5th on occasion and against the right pitcher, and you don't look terribly askew at it, helps. And then, just he's had the ability to put the ball over the fence the last couple of years, and in the right park against the right pitcher, he can play with anybody in terms of notching homers and trotting around the bases. So I think that's where he can step up. And I think it's funny that with with Hill being hurt, I always want to call him Derek Bell. With Hill being hurt and Hayes and Pereira not coming back, all roads lead back to Luis Angel Acuna when every fan wants to get rid of him. And I think you're seeing Benintendi roar back to life when every fan wanted him DFA'd in April or just, traded for nothing over the winter. And I think for better or for worse, they're going to be hanging around. And I think Benintendi's probably going to be able to do enough to defend his roster spots and his place on the team just by being a credible bat when either a lot of bats are having a hard time staying healthy and even being around, or just striking out too much or providing a nice level of balance for this lineup.
Well, the White Sox now begin their gauntlet. Obviously, they wanted to fare better in Minneapolis before starting these 12 games, but they are 1-2 in the month of June, and the next 12 games, it's 3 at Philadelphia, and then a 6-game homestand with the Atlanta Braves and the Los Angeles Dodgers visiting. And then after that Dodgers series, they head to the Bronx to face the New York Yankees. So these next 12 games are going to say a lot about the White Sox, even though the White Sox are not at full strength. The goal is to tread water, do not drown, do not go 0-12. Let's not see that. 5-7, 6-6, that'd be great. That'd be great. And it all starts this weekend against the Phillies. The Phillies have roared back. They are 32-29. They're second place in the National League East. They're really far away from the Atlanta Braves still. They're 9 games back of the Braves in the division. However, the Phillies have caught the Chicago Cubs, and they're just a half game back of the National League wild card. So they're back in the thick of the postseason race. They are 7-3 in their last 10. They have won their last 2 games. It's a bit undecided what the Phillies are going to do for their pitching this weekend against the White Sox. All 3 of these games for the Phillies is to be determined. But we do know the pitchers for the White Sox. And starting on Friday night at 5:40 p.m. Central Time, this is Anthony Kay will take the ball. On Saturday afternoon, 3:05 p.m. Central Time, Sean Burke. And then on Sunday at 12:35 p.m. Central Time, it'll be David Sandlin making his 3rd start. Jim, the Phillies, as I mentioned, have roared back, and they have found new life under Don Mattingly, who has taken over the interim manager spot and has gotten these veterans to play a lot better. This seems to be a Philadelphia thing, though. Didn't this almost exactly happened with Rob Thompson, right? Like that's how he got the gig. He was the interim manager, and they roared back, and he ended up being the manager. And this just seems to be a Phillies thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of analysts early on were saying, yeah, you can fire Thompson, but there's probably regression coming. The Phillies aren't going to be this bad. So whoever manages, and given Mattingly's track record, not the most decorated of managers, more or less a seat filler, I think, when it comes to his profile. Nothing stands out. Nothing, he's not the worst manager who ever lived. Certainly professional, knows how to handle the media aspiration or angle of the job, and doesn't really stick his foot in his mouth, but also not somebody who really moves the game forward with strategy. An okay hire, kind of weird that he's working for his son. That's kind of odd in this regard, but if you want a major leaguer, somebody who's has a track record and commands respect, then for a veteran clubhouse, kind of makes sense for the Phillies to listen to him, and maybe a way that they could tune out Thompson. But given what Thompson did with the Phillies and had some success there, that seems like not like going from Pedro Grifol to Grady Sizemore of just, we like this guy a lot more because he's a lot more comfortable in his skin. It just struck me as they needed a change. They need something to show how serious they were about turning this around, and managers can be interchangeable as long as you feel like the talent's there and you have somebody who can step in and talk to players, and Mattingly probably can. So the weird thing about the Phillies, looking at their numbers, is their offense is still underperforming. A lot of Schwarber. It's a top heavy offense. But still, I expected when I looked at the splits to see a big May turnaround, and there wasn't. It's a sub 700 OPS, not hitting the ball like you think they would, but I guess they're hitting enough homers, and they're also stealing a lot of bases, which I was surprised by. Trey Turner's still having a bad season, but he's stealing bases when he's on. A lot of guys, they're 26 for 30 in May. So it's the tied for fifth in steals and best efficiency of any team. So for a White Sox team that can kind of lose track of that, that would be one thing I'm looking at for. It's one thing to try to keep them in the park, but if you keep them in the park, then can you keep them from advancing 90 feet the way that the White Sox gave up a little bit too liberally in Minnesota?
Sir, they're calling you not the worst manager who ever lived. The praise is rolling in.
Yeah, I mean, it's you hear a lot about how managers don't win games, they lose games, and that most of them are hope to be replacement level. And I think that's probably pretty true of the situation. And that, like, if your players have been at fault, then you can probably swap out managers and not expect. In worst case scenario, they continue to be bad, and Dombrowski has to try to tear apart the team. So I mean, like, it is a very easy lever to pull. Just because of where they were with the team they had, and the answers are either they play better or they start breaking it up because of the age.
We want to hire a manager that the fans walk in the ballpark, they see him and think, I don't think it's his fault. That's what we aspire to.
Or, yeah, kind of. Just I kind of like the umpires. Like, if I know his name, they're not doing a great job. And I think that's a similar thing about managers, is that you're going to know their name, of course, because they speak to the media twice a day for 162 games, but or like maybe 6 days a week, because Venable doesn't do Sundays. But yeah, they're a little bit too visible. So yeah, if you can not think about them, given how often they're in front of your face, that's a pretty good trick.
Like already have like teams that don't announce like the terms that the manager's contract is. That the next wave will be teams that just don't. We've hired a manager that his name will not be disclosed.
Also, he's going to sit in a different spot in the dugout every game.
We don't want our fans to get fixated on who's managing the team. Just focus on the result.
Oh, man. That'll be the way that AI starts taking over and starts managing baseball teams. Just a laptop. Lappy's our new manager. The White Sox will not have to face Christopher Sanchez. That helps a great deal when you got a starting pitcher who doesn't allow an earned run over 50 innings. That streak finally broke for him, but that is a good sign for the White Sox. I am curious on how the start of these games go for the White Sox, James, because Anthony Kay, no issue at all, but the Phillies do trot out 3 of their first 4 hitters are lefties in Schwarber, Bryce Harper, and Brandon Marsh. Could we see some openers this weekend?
You would think, because they have 4 lefties on the roster. If Tyler Gilbert comes back, they could, basically toggle between their 5 and keep 4 on the roster, since Chris Murphy just worked 2 innings on Sunday. Like you said, K1 just doesn't seem like he needs the help or wants it, based on how his April went and how his May went. But with Burke, certainly someone you protected from platoon issues before, and certainly Sandlin. You obviously want him to start a clean inning based on everything we discussed with him, but you would think that they're both kind of, especially Sandlin was someone who's basically worked to give himself anything that goes arm side, sparing him the first run of lefties. You would think that would be under consideration, and they certainly have the options present. Brandon Eisert, he's been solid recently, but like just was built to be an opener. Just this weird, like low velo lefty, low slot, low release height. Like if the notion is not so much like, obviously your starting pitcher is supposed to be your best option, but like if we're gonna change a pace, let's change it up as much as possible. Like what's a better, like, to mess with people who are about to face Sean Burke than to have like this little lefty who then drops down and like releases from under 5 feet off the ground right before it. So yeah, why not?
And also he pitched 3 full seasons in AAA before he got to the White Sox. So he's happy to do anything in the majors.
That's probably a lot of the bullpen still.
But 3 full seasons, like
yeah.
not a call up. Ages 24, 25, 26. Like you're looking at like 150 games in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, covering Brandon Eisert has not been like covering Craig Kimbrell as far as debates, as far as when he's going to come in the games. I'd concede that point readily, sure.
Where's Craig Kimbrell now? He got DFA'd and he latched onto some
Rays, the injured list.
Yeah,
on the Rays.
he like came up and had like this awesome outing with them, and then went on the IL. So I still don't know if he's back to being Hall of Famer Craig Kimbrell or what.
I'm trying to think who. Maybe it was Nightingale. I'm trying to think. Some national reporter talking about how Kimbrell might be losing his Hall of Fame case, and I'm like, yes, good.
I am curious on how the late game situations will go with Sir Anthony Dominguez and how prone that he is giving up home runs to lefties. I wonder because the bottom half of the lineup for the Phillies is very right-handed. So if that comes to a situation where the 7th inning, that stretch of the lineup is coming in, maybe we see Dominguez, maybe he holds Brian Hudson back. If the top of the order is coming up in a high leverage situation, the 8th or 9th inning, I could see Hudson getting some save opportunities as well. I don't see Don Mattingly really changing up as far as the lineup, especially with how well they've been hitting.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially the type of lefties they have, like Schwarber and Harper aren't really the guys you move around too much.
No,
for those reasons. So yeah, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. So just prepare for that, listeners, as we watch this series this weekend. Hopefully Brian Hudson, whenever that situation comes, that'll be his role. I could see Sean Newcomb also getting an opportunity there too. So be part of watching this weekend series in Philadelphia and how Will Venable manages in those situations. But it'll be a tough series for the White Sox. The Phillies have been playing great baseball. They got a lot of veteran talent. It is the start of the 12-game gauntlet, and let's go 500 at least, White Sox, during this stretch. It would really help as far as their case of making the postseason this season. And that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you just discovered the show, you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. Check out our videos. We've been posting as far as shorts with the post-game press conferences and even some of the interviews as well, like with Chris Getz on him speaking about the upcoming MLB Draft. You can check out our videos at our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at Sox Machine_Josh. If you enjoy our work, you want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, Major League Baseball, and the upcoming Major League Baseball Draft. Go to soxmachine.com/products to sign up and subscribe and get a bunch of benefits as the ad-free version of the podcast website. Unlock the comments section. But Jim, the White Sox are still above 500. Do we still have this discount?
Yes, 53 cents.
53 cents.
Was 54 cents, now 53 cents for your first
53 cents. So go to soxmachine.com/products and sign up today. 53 cents for your first month, and then it'll be $5 a month afterwards. A great deal, though. So again, go to soxmachine.com/products and sign up today. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of soxmachine.com. You're for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.